Just hours ago, thousands of people rallied outside the White House to protest the proposed construction of the Keystone Pipeline from Canada to the U.S. Gulf Coast. Several prominent environmentalists, including lawyer Robert F. Kennedy Jr., were arrested after tying themselves to the White House gate. The protesters want President Barack Obama to reject the pipeline, which they fear could leak and contaminate water supplies. Supporters say it will lead to North American energy independence and create 1,700 jobs. Obama has twice rejected the plan, but is open to the idea of rerouting the pipeline. The protest is one of the largest we've seen outside the White House in several years, illustrating how seriously some Americans take environmental issues. I asked Dan Fiorino, director of the Center for Environmental Policy at the American University, if President Obama is listening to them.
I think they're definitely listening, and I think the fact that the president gave some serious attention to climate change in his State of the Union speech says that they really want to do something. We know that the president is going to move ahead with EPA setting standards for
That's the
utilities, the Environmental Protection Agency. We also know that Senators Boxer and Sanders last week introduced a bill that would establish a fee on carbon that would, I think it's $20 a ton, to go up 5 or 6% a year for some time. And the idea there would be to sort of make carbon more expensive and make the alternatives more attractive. So I think the president wants to do something. It's hard to predict if Keystone XL is really where they will take action, or they'll rely on some other strategies.
All right, then, well, let's look at the obstacles that the White House faces. Where are those obstacles?
Well, in terms of overall on climate change, number one obstacle is Congress, particularly the House of Representatives, where there is, in general, the sentiment that climate change is either not a real issue, or that human activity is not contributing to it, or, if you accept both of those, that the U.S. now is such a declining share of emissions relative to, say, China, that us taking action wouldn't have that much of an effect. So I think there's that political obstacle is number one. Certainly the fossil fuel industry, coal and oil, who would certainly be affected by restrictions in carbon, are not eager to have climate action. So I think there's some pretty big political obstacles.
The president can take executive actions that don't require the approval of Congress, right?
Well, they've talked about taking executive actions, but in terms of really putting a price on carbon, which most of us think is what has to change the picture for us to get real action on, at least on the causes of climate change, there's a limit to what he can do. He can certainly make the federal government more efficient. He can certainly push EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as it is, to set efficiency standards for utilities. They've done for new utilities, but moving on to other industry categories. So there's some things that he can do, but I think to really affect sort of the trajectory of carbon use and thus of climate change would require some kind of legislative action.
Okay, we have a little time left. I just want to get onto one other thing, and that is getting the public on your side, in this battle to combat climate change. When we have something like Superstorm Sandy, that really caught the public imagination. We heard a lot about climate change when that took place. Is it changing public opinion?
Well, there are a few signs lately. It's interesting. I remember back in, say, 2007, 2008, before the financial crisis, climate change was actually getting traction, and we saw higher public awareness. And then as the economy got into trouble, that sort of pushed aside climate. Lately, we've seen a few signs that some of these major weather events, which will be more likely under the climate change scenario, are getting some additional public attention. So it may be that that's part of the hook that will get the public to focus on these kinds of issues.
Okay, sir, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.